Yep.
Okay.
What's your order?
There's going to be
One second. I may have covered the phone.
four off.
4 off? Okay.
Do I need to put it on there again for you, or is
We're just gonna word it, okay?
Alright.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Okay, the after words of role that capitalism plays in prostitution, legalizing prostitution, just legalizing capitalist exploitation of prostitution, Matthews 8. The outcomes present to the process in terms that are too voluntaristic and individualistic, which implicitly or explicitly outcome is to present involve a lack of appreciation of the social structural processes in play. The decision to enter any form in contemporary society is subject to different levels of constraint. These constraints operate at the economic, social, and personal levels. On the economic level, within the capitalist labor market, all workers are free to sell their labor as they wish. However, it is free labor is compelled to sell its labor, power, or starve. And prostitution further capitalist control. Brothels become a tool of expansion. For instance, Hosbick 7. Brothels rationalize the negotiation process of mostly modern monetary exchanges. Many brothel owners live in fear that any increased invisibility could motivate a community backlash or inspire local politicians to legislate them out of existence. They are relying on the internet and other forms of creative marketing to get around advertising restrictions. Several other the large brothels have invested in renovating facilities, moving away from Western or homey interiors to more upscale, stylish, even elegant aesthetics. And the methodology of the capitalist system creates prisons of oppression that make the actions like final solutions possible. Complete rejection is key to liberation. Duluth 72. The capitalist machine does not run the risk of becoming mad and mad from one end to the other, and from the beginning is the source of rationality. Capitalism is defined by a cruelty having no parallel in despotic regime of terror. Wage increase and improvements in the standard of living are realities, but realities that derive from a given supplementary axiom. The capitalism is always capable of adding to its axiomatic in terms of an enlargement of its limits, and capitalism makes a security order inevitable. Neocleus 11. Process that constitutes capitalist social relations is the separation of the bulk of the population from the means of production. Without separation, workers from the means of production, capital could not have come into being. Without such separation, there could be no capitalistic relation. Central to the process of violence is creation of capitalism is the violence, security, and security. And the alternatives reject the affirmative epistemological lens to clear space for analyzing the totality of capital social relations. Zizek 8. Hitler staged a spectacle of revolution so that the capitalist order could survive. By abstaining from voting, people effectively dissolve the government, rejects the very frame of decision. It's better to do nothing than to contribute to the invention of formal ways of rendering and cut the card there. Okay, moving on to narratives. Using personal experience to establish legitimacy of argument essentializes differences. This prevents an analysis of the ideological systems that shape the construction of experience. Scott 9. This kind of appeal to experience is uncontestable evidence as an originary point of explanation, as a foundation on which analysis is based that weakens the critical thrust of histories of differences. The studies lose the possibility of examining those assumptions and practices that includes the duration of differences in the first place. The evidence of experience thus becomes evidence of the fact of differences rather than the way of exploring how differences is established, how it operates, and in what ways it constitutes subjects who see it as an act in the world. The projects of making experience visible precludes critical examination of the workings of the ideological system itself, and their appeal to the experience of an oppressed identity is to establish the authenticity of a political claim, reinforces exclusion experience defined in ill-serving terms to eliminate questioning of its foundational status. Scott 91. The unifying aspect of experience exclusive realms will not simply counting them as experiences, but at least not the consensus for social organizations or politics when class becomes an overriding idea and their social positions are subsumed by it. Experience becomes itself cumulative and homogenizing, providing the common denominator on which class conscience is built. With what this obscures is the contradictory and contested process by which diverse kinds of subject positions were assigned, felt contested, or embraced. As a result, ends up essentializing it, closes down inquiry into the ways in which female subjectivity is provided, is produced, the ways in which agency is made possible, the ways in which race and sexuality intersect with transgender, and we should not experience as the basis for authority. Exposing the existence of racial ideology on the basis of experience does not provide the means to undermine it. Scott 891. Making experience visible precludes the analysis of the workings of the system and its history. Instead, it reproduces its terms. We come to appreciate regression as an interested act of power or domination, making visible experiences of a different group, expose the existence of repressive mechanisms, but not the inner workings or its logics. We know the differences exist, but we don't understand it as rationally constituted. And midterms. Uniqueness against winning. Democrats are winning now, and are shifting the trends before our predicted numbers. Easily 18. These things have 918, excuse me. These have not gone the GOP's ways. The momentum has shifted back to the Democrats, and passing the plan close to election time kills any chance of re-election. Augusta 8. Policymakers have reputation switching between regimes with us depend on the actual reputation enjoyed by the policymakers in the proximity of elections. These same governments will not move away from prohibition if it is close to elections and wishes to maximize its reputation with swing voters. Repressive regimes, prohibition and abolition increase the cost of pushing prostitution underground, making it difficult for sex workers to protect themselves. And plans unpopular. People get angry at Obama. Passing the plan close to election time kills any chance Democrats of re-election lost swing voters. Goes to 8. Policymakers have reputation increase to relative importance. Reputation will increase closer to term. If swing voters tend to have views that are fairly conservative, they will be less impressed by the liberal policies. The government will not move its close to elections and wishes to maximize reputation with swing voters. And GOP Senate will go hard line against Russian collapses. Relations of risk war. Buchanan 14. The odds are now even the GOP will not only hold the House but also capture the Senate. USA would include anti-tank aircraft weapons. Economic relations between us and Russia would virtually be severed. Putin has signaled this as we cross the line. We could have a mini Cuba missile crisis in Eastern Europe, and impact strong relations to prevent U.S.-Russia war and solve the alternative powers. Russian war, ultranationalists, Cohen 11. Existential reality. Only Russia possesses devices that make mass destruction from the U.S. for without an expensive cooperative relationship with Russia, there can be no real U.S. national security. A democratic transformation includes ultranationalist and neo-Stalinist American policy will be a crucial factor. Only when relations with the West are improving. Without a pro-Russian lobby or significant U.S. economic relationship over the reset is highly vulnerable to attacks. And soft power. Uniqueness. U.S. soft power is declining now. Kelly 14. Our soft power is the power to convince, gain acceptance through passive means is waning, while the rest of the world moves forward. Even our influence for our own citizens is shrinking. Meanwhile, China is taking steps to grow its soft power over. Chinese officials have even said they wish to build up their soft power for the rest of the world. And legalizing prostitution is popular internationally. White Search 12. Prostitution is legal in many nations according to ProCon.org's review of its laws. In 100 countries, 61% have legalized at least some kind of prostitution. And impacts increased soft power, devalues use of force, and ensures global chaos and stability, create and great power wars. Group 14. If you are not prepared to fight, your general persuasion is going to persuade no one. This is the lesson that we could draw from the history of the 20th century, in which tyrants and totalitarians confronted soft power with a simple response: submit or die. Soft power is likely to save minorities from massacres, offering your stuffed sandwich to a tiger is likely to save your arm. The elite is unable to act since the soft power requires to place the military action so far down the agenda that it will always be too little too late. Cut the card there. And great power results in planetary extinction. Litterman 14. We are in a moment characterized by the rise of new economic powers and the relative decline of old ones. In the past, these have been the times when great power wars occurred. Countries with the most powerful military still deploy nuclear arsenals large enough to destroy most of human civilization and do catastrophic long-term, long-lasting damage to the environment. And moving on to case insolvency. Spoil solves best. Regulations too burdensome to solve, but lack of regulations leaves abuse unchecked. Monroe goes to 8. Licensing regime would need extensive administration and enforcement resources and risk the creation of a two-tier industry. Lack of regulation may permit abuses to go unchecked. The most acceptable response to prostitution lies in the abolitionist movement. And legalization fails. Expands street prostitution when won't participate in the legal sector and increases violence. Matthews 8. Legislation encourages the expansion of the street trade. Most of the women who work on the streets do not want to offer the type of commitment and which is normally required of women who work in these commercialized sex establishments. Spread of legal brothels has been accompanied in an increase in certain forms of violence. The claim that legal establishments are violence-free and provide a safe environment for the women is a mistake. It is cruel lie to suggest that decriminalization or legislation will protect anyone in prostitution. And legalization fails. Laundry list, whites are 8. Legalization cannot fully resolve the problem of illegal prostitution, and empirics prove too many unforeseen consequences of legalization. Sullivan 11. Legalization, however, brought with it new problems. No legislatures are able to force these diverse forms of sexual exploitation from which sex businessmen discover that they can make money. The real growth areas in the illegal sector. Since the legalization process began, there has been an explosion of forms of sexual exploitation in the industry, and legalization increases trafficking, best studies proves. Cho et al. 13. Evidence seems to show that the legalized sex industries actually result in increased trafficking and meet the demand for women to be used in legal sex industries. We find that countries that legalize prostitution have a statistically significant larger reported instance of Obama trafficking inflows, and legalization increases violence against women. IT8. A woman finds herself involved in prostitution as a consequence of very strange circumstances. Prostitution survival strategy. No state has yet effectively regulated the sex industry.
She has to run to the bathroom real quick.
They're just so happy to be alive. They're so cute.
Need water.
My community store, you got water. Okay, I was about to say, if you want to use nice tea.
How long is it drive from Liberty?
About an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's not, it's closer to an hour and a half than Easter, actually.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful drive.
Yeah, it's all good countryside.
Are you guys JMU?
Yeah, we go.
Okay, so you know that this campus is absolutely close.
Yeah.
I've never been to the.
Okay, you can do cross-ex. I'll just make sure that she can find me when she comes back.
Good plan.
Okay, yeah, okay, for your cap K, can your alt solve any parts of the problem?
The alt basically solves the analysis level that you were talking about, where the idea is you're trying to analyze and figure out where violence comes from. So yeah, it does. Yeah, it removes stigma and stuff.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
How does, can you explain your friends and aspects of an evidence that talks, like, how is prostitution, how does it exactly further capitalism?
The idea is that you're furthering the capitalist system in implementation of your plan. So the idea here is that because individuals are participating in the system, because they're stimulating the system, you're promoting the capitalist.
So your alternative was like a totalitizing rejection of capitalism, correct?
The idea was, yeah, you reject it. To do nothing is better than to do
Right, but no, it's like,
nothing.
there's a huge difference, like, what it define a totalizing rejection of capitalism?
But the idea is you reject the epistemological lens of the institute to look at
So how do you solve for your, it requires like.
the solvency is that you're no longer capitalism, and therefore you create this instance along with others. This instance simply promotes the system.
Okay. Okay, onto your solvency, what's the mortifying your Weitzler 8 card?
The
Legalization failed.
Okay, well, what's your question now? Sorry, I didn't.
Why does legalization fail?
Oh, okay. I didn't have time to read all the warrants, but basically it's talking about problems that are fairly common, stigmas, claims that prostitution is immoral.
So like,
Because it's,
so the stigmas still exist.
Yeah.
Is one of the points. You're not actually removing stigmas.
why?
Because the act is frowned upon in society.
And we can
The
never
act of
change that.
prostitution.
Sex work is
Yeah, okay, and we
Because
can
it's so
never change
fundamental to
that.
individual worldviews, you look at systems.
You can't
and people-
change people's worldviews. You can't change their mindsets or their opinions.
I
Just
mean,
because you
well,
legalize it
well,
doesn't mean.
you
Okay,
can.
alright.
Well,
but-
but that's fine.
Okay, what are the unforeseen consequences of legalization? Did you get to that part of the Sullivan Jeffries 11?
I read part of it, yeah, I didn't have to read the entire thing. Sorry, I'm having time. Okay, it says that,
I'm gonna take pressure, so just go ahead and answer.
Okay.
all right, so basically the evidence is saying that, you can't see everything, all of the forms of sexual exploitation that will happen, because we can't proceed after work.
Okay,
That is your question?
Yeah, that's